All right, this is the seventh lesson of the fall semester, looking at the book of Revelation and the great multitude that will appear. And this is over along
Page 50.
100.
Yeah.
Is it page 100?
Yeah, it's the
Okay.
book page.
Yeah, the picture page 100, not the book page. The page like 25 and
50.
oh, 50? Oh, yeah, two of them. Sure. Yeah. Okay. This is the results of Revelation 7 of the 144,000 witnesses that we see that were called in the beginning of the book, or excuse me, beginning of the chapter. Those that from the 12 tribes of Israel that will be sent throughout the whole world. Remember, the origin of their location can be anywhere in the world. I think sometimes we think if it's 144,000 Jews from each tribe, that means they're living in Israel, and one day they're going to leave Israel and go throughout the world. But they could be living anywhere in the world at this point. I mean, there are more Jews outside of Israel than there are in Israel today. So there could be Jews from the United States, and as soon as the rapture occurs, they'll start their ministry, they'll get saved, and then start their ministry. And John said this here, he said, after these things I looked up, and behold, a great multitude, which no one could count, from every nation, all tribes and people and tongues, standing before the throne and before the Lamb, clothed in white robes, and palm branches were in their hands, and palm were signs of victory. And they cry out with a loud voice, saying, Salvation to our God who sits on the throne and to the Lamb. And all the angels were standing around the throne, and around the elders and 4 living creatures, and they fell on their faces before the throne and worshiped God, saying, Amen, blessing and glory and wisdom and thanksgiving and honor and power and might be to our God forever and ever. So what angels are these? Are these cherubim or seraphim?
Around the throne.
Mm-hmm.
Cherubim.
Right? There's seraphim.
Cherubim.
Cherubim are warring angels, or like Ezekiel chapter 1, there were cherubs that came down. Revelation 4 were seraphims. And we know because seraphim are messenger angels. What are these doing? Giving a message. And so there's around the throne, they clothe white robes. Excuse me. And one of the elders saying to me, these who are clothed in white robes, who are they? And from where have they come? And I said, my Lord, you know. And he said to me, these are the ones who come out of the great tribulation. So this is not the church, it's not us around the throne at this point. These are people who get saved in the tribulation period and have been martyred or died in the tribulation period. And now we're in the middle, 144,000 as well. It says they have washed their robes and made them white with the blood of the Lamb. For this reason they are before the throne of God. And they serve him day and night in his temple. So these are tribulation saints. They will serve God day and night in his temple, along with Old Testament saints and throughout all the land of Israel. As the church, we won't be here, we'll be in the rest of the world. And so the context here shows that those are who get saved from a great multitude, every nation, kindred, tribes, tongues, what have you. Verse 16, they shall hunger no more, not thirst any more, neither shall the sun beat down on them, nor any heat, for the Lamb is in the center of the throne shall be their shepherd, and shall guide them to springs of the water of life, and God shall wipe away every tear from their eyes. So these, like I say, they're robed in white, but there's not the church. The number of people saved, well, not only, the Bible says not only will people get saved, but as far as human computation, we won't know. I don't understand. I respect David Jeremiah. I think he's one of the great preachers today, great Bible teachers today. But he, along with some of the people, believe that if you've ever heard the gospel, but you don't make a decision, and the rapture occurs, then you can't make a decision. And he based off of 2 Thessalonians, when it says, God shall send them strong delusion that they should believe a lie. Well, that's 2 Thessalonians, first of all, it's talking about people in the tribulation period. So The context is, if people in the tribulation period reject God, God will send them strong delusion that they basically could believe a lie if they want to believe a lie. But that's true today. Right? If a person today doesn't want to get saved, God says He can turn them over to a reprobate mind. And that was true in the Old Testament. God hardened Pharaoh's heart, so then the Bible says that first Pharaoh hardened his heart, and then God hardened his heart. So that's strong delusion, or that's reprobate mind. Today's strong delusion, or reprobate mind, or hardening of heart, whatever. And so Thessalonians doesn't say, I mean, it'd be like saying that Sandra's not saved, and I say, Sandra, you need to accept Jesus Christ as your Savior. Jesus Christ died on the cross for you, He was buried, He rose again on the third day, and He did this for your sin. Rapture occurs. Now you can't get saved because I didn't finish. You didn't get all the gospel. So no, I do not believe that in any way whatsoever. And the Bible tells us that from every nation, every kindred, every tongue, I mean, people all of the United States, not everybody knows Jesus personally, but they do know of Jesus. And many of them know the gospel, but I mean, I knew the gospel growing up, but never got saved. So would I have been left behind? No, I don't believe that. And here it says this number will be so many. And I personally, I believe that it's extremely likely, extremely probable that more people will be saved in the tribulation period itself than have been saved over the last 2,000 years. I really did, because the population of the earth is so great today. It's 8 billion people. I mean, when I was born, there's 3 billion, 3.5 billion. In 1900, there was like 1.5 billion. And so you take the population on back, there's not that many people compared to how many are alive today in the tribulation period. Now, I know most of these will die. And the Bible tells us that at the end of the tribulation period, that the people that survive the tribulation and get saved, survive, will spend the next 7 years, or 7 months rather, just burying the dead. And we're talking, mass graves. We're not talking about individual funerals all over the land. They'll probably do like they did in Germany in World War II, where they took tractors and steam shovels and everything else and did mass graves. And so still 7 months. So a lot of people will die during this time. From every nation, all the tribes of people and tongues, 144,000 were all Israelites. We know that. But this group is composed of all nationalities. So definitely going to other people. Undoubtedly, this will include the redeemed Jews beyond 144. For this is a period of Jacob's trouble, when all Israel will be saved or delivered. In addition, and remember the word saved means delivered. So when we talk about all Israel being saved, it doesn't mean that they all have salvation. It just means that Israel will be delivered. And then you look at the context. Is it delivered in the millennial kingdom? Like Matthew 24:13, those who endure to the end shall be saved. They already get saved spiritually, but at the end they are saved physically, delivered into the millennial kingdom. In addition, these are from every nation, which must include Israel, from all tribes, which include 12 tribes, so people all over the world. The difference now between the church and those who get saved in the tribulation. We are kept out, and these are all Revelation references here, kept out of the tribulation. Other passages, Thessalonians talks about, we're saved from the tribulation. We are clothed in white raiment or garments. And it's interesting that the white we wear is different than the white they will wear. I think we could describe it kind of like this. The church is the bride of Christ. And so if we're the bride of Christ, our white is like the wedding dress. And their white is more like a maid of honor or something like that, or an attendant at. And because these are part of the body of Israel, even though they're Gentiles, but those who get saved, like the Old Testament saints, tribulation saints, are the part of the bride of Jehovah. The church is a bride of Christ. And so there is different words in the Bible for our garments and their garments, although they're both white. We will sit on thrones about the throne, because we will rule and reign with Christ. they will stand before the throne. So a little bit different in our duties. The crowns we wear, the victor's crown, the promised church, we are given crowns to wear, but then we know those crowns will be given over to Christ. So it's not like, you know, when we walk through eternity saying, I got more crowns than you now. There's no crowns mentioned, but that doesn't mean they won't be rewarded, because we know that they will. Matthew 25 talks about I was hungry and you fed me, and then it goes on down and saying that the kingdom's like a man who gives 10 talents to one servant, 5 talents to another servant, and 1 talent to the third. The one that had 10 doubled his talents, the one that had 5 doubled. The one that had 1 buried it in the ground. And God says that he'll take away that talent from him and give it to others. And so there is a basis of reward to the tribulation saints. I don't know how much they would give, because they don't really serve God very long, 7 years at the most if they get saved day one. But nevertheless, how faithful they serve. So there is a reward system for them as well as us. Having harps and golden bowls full of incense doesn't mean we'll turn into angels and play harps kind of thing. I know where some of the doctrines people have. Palm branches there, of course, that signifies victory. And in particular, that's what they used during the time of the Maccabees, when the Maccabees kicked out Antiochus IV. They used palm branches at that point to signal one another in the battle. And then at the end of the battle, that became a symbol for Israel to this day, that they think of the palm leaf as a sign of victory. We'll sing a new song, They Cry Out with a Loud Voice. Declared to be kingdom of priests who will reign with Christ. Here it says they will serve him day or night. So, again, our responsibility is throughout the rest of the world. We will reign with Christ. Their responsibility is to serve him day and night in Israel. So review here the 7 seals. The first seal, of course, the white horse. And they remember white horse coming in the name of peace, but having a bow in his hand. The red, black, and pale horse, all. White horse is more the first 3.5 years. And then red, black, and pale horse covered probably some of the first part of the trip, but definitely from the middle to the end, with death and disease take place. I mean, just horrible. 5th seal, the martyred saints. 6th seal, the physical disturbances will go on throughout the world. And remember, they will continue until God sends down angels to stop the physical disturbances.
Is that happening now?
No, it happened right now. No. Yeah,
Oh my
kind of look. And 7th seal consists of 7 trumpet plagues. So, you know, there's 7 seal judgments, 7 trumpet judgments, and 7 vial judgments. And so we tend to think that means there's 21. Okay, 7, 7, and 7. Sounds like 21, right? No, because there are 7 seal judgments, and in the 7th sealed judgment are the 7 trumpet and the 7 vial. Right. So there's still only 7 seal judgments in total. It's just that the 7th seal has within its 7th trumpet judgment the 7 vial judgments. We'll look at that a little bit closer, try to illustrate a little better. But the 7th seal here begins. And again, the final seal consists of these 7 trumpet judgments. So what is the 7th seal? 7 trumpet judgments. And so what is the 7th trumpet judgment? 7 vial judgments. And here's the illustration here goes on here. So the 7 trumpet judgments have 7 bowl or vial judgments in them. Some Bibles, or some say vial, some say bowl, same thing. There's just a list of all the judgments. And I think each of you notes, so I'm just reviewing them quickly so we get those. But 7 trumpet judgments, 7 angels, saw the 7 angels who stand before God, and 7 trumpets were given to them. In chapter 8, verse 3, it begins, and another angel came and stood at the altar, having a golden censer, and much incense was given to him. And he might add it to the prayers of all the saints upon the golden altar. When we pray, it's like an incense going to God, and God keeps those prayers. Now, why would he do that? Well, because they're precious to him. And remember Malachi 3:16. It talks about when two people talk about the Lord, that the Lord hears it. And he writes down what they say in the book of remembrance. So it's just amazing how much God cares for us. You know, I have things at the house that are totally worthless monetarily, but it's something my kid had or something, whatever, that to me is precious. I want to keep it. You know, like I say, it has no intrinsic value. And, you know, I was thinking that day, you know, after I leave this world, I'll have all this stuff left behind that nobody will care about. You know, but my mom has a little tiny potbelly stove. We call them whatnots growing up, because she had hundreds of them. Yeah, we had dust in my spot. But she has a little potbelly stove that she's going to give me. Well, I looked online. It's probably worth about $4. It's at least 65 years old. Yeah, it has to be at least 65 years old. Because inside it is a cigarette butt that her dad smoked. And he died in 1950. Or 1950. So, you know, if I was to put the cigarette butt on eBay, I probably wouldn't be able to sell it. I don't know, people, somebody bought a piece of toast that had an outline that they said it looked like a bomb, and it went for several $100. But anyway, to me that's precious. You know, that I'm, you know, the potbelly stove, because it was his, and you know, from like say 1950, so quite a few years later. Well, that's what God does with our stuff. You know, he keeps it because it's important and precious stuff. First 4 trumpets. First angel sounded, and there followed hail and fire mingled with blood, and they were cast upon the earth. And the third part of the trees was burnt up, and all the green grass was burnt up. Now you have to remember, this is going on when what else is happening? The Gog and Magog war that began right after the Antichrist proclaimed himself to be God, and then all the Muslim nations, and we'll look at that a little bit closer later on, but all the Muslim nations go against the Antichrist because, you remember, he proclaimed to be God in Israel, in the temple, therefore he's saying he's Jehovah, and they are not looking for Jehovah, they're looking for Allah, and Allah is going to Mecca, not to Jerusalem. So they're going to take out their anger against him and form this probably at least 2 billion plus army of all Muslim nations that are surrounding Israel and the rest of the world, because look how fast Islam is growing today, and that, you know, may be a good indication that the time is near as well. When they attack, then the Antichrist will have to form his own army, which is all the other nations, and therefore this great, truly world war, it will be the first world war, because it's all nations, all people will be involved in this. So those that are fighting, and then those that are left behind to farm what little bit they can, and the food rationing and all this, and food becomes so scarce that the only way that you can buy and sell is the mark. And in my office I have some rationing coupons from World War II, that if you needed sugar during World War II, because they used sugar to make bombs back in World War II, it's like 2 acres of sugar cane made one bomb, one missile that they shot off. And so sugar became very scarce. So if you needed sugar back then, you had to have a coupon. Without that coupon, you couldn't buy or sell. And so I'm sure there's probably people who lived during that time and think, oh, this is the mark of the beast kind of thing. We don't know, but in the tribulation period, they definitely have some way to limit what people can buy and sell. Mark of the beast makes sense of it. So you can't have that if you're saved. Therefore, you have to grow your own garden if you can, unless your family turns you in or wherever you hide. So it's going to be messed up. And then a third part of the trees were burnt up. So now, not only are they fighting the world war, they're fighting forest fires throughout the earth, 1/3. And the green grass was burned up.
Sounds familiar to me.
Yeah, and therefore, farmland is gone. They're fighting a war, they're trying to survive, farmland's gone, it's gonna be bad. With the sound of the first trumpet, hail and fire and cast the earth mingled with blood. And the results here, 1/3 of the earth specifically burned are the trees and the green grass. Also refers to the crops. Wheat, barley, rice, corn, whatever. Imagine the result of this, of what's going to take place. I mean, they just announced a flu pandemic, COVID, whatever, in March of 2020. By April the 1st, you couldn't find toilet paper because people hoard up so quick.
Couldn't find what?
Toilet paper.
Oh, toilet paper.
Yeah. World War II, most of the United States went by the rationing, willfully. And the black market was there, but very limited, and people were greatly opposed to the black market. And so they would turn people in, because they supported the war effort. People bought war coupons, what do you call them? Not war coupons, war bonds. War bonds, and most of the people bought war bonds, tore up the war bonds and threw them away. Because they didn't want money back from the government, they just wanted to give the government money, fine. And that's why they call that the greatest generation. Today, if that were to happen, do you think people would be willing to just give money to the government support? No. The people are so selfish nowadays, they think that they're owed all these things. Hail comes from above and naturally speaks the source, as well as the suddenness of it, quickly. Fire, consuming character of God's wrath. Blood, of course, obviously talking about death here. Reminds us of men will be killed by these judgments, and that the wages of sin is death. 1/3 of the earth destroyed by fire. So very, very sad. Second trumpet then. Second angel sound, and as the word great mountain burning with fire was cast into the sea. So it's volcanic activity. Third part of the sea became blood. So now 1/3 of the ocean is 1/3 of the sea here is blood. And 1/3 part of the creatures in the city and had life died, and 1/3 part of the ships were destroyed. So now even, like I say, the ocean itself, there's problems, volcanic activity. It does not say that a great mountain burning fire was cast in the sea, rather it says something like a great mountain. So we don't know exactly. It could be an asteroid coming down, could be a volcano, could be, remember the word like here. Where's it at? Were a great mountain burning with fire, as it were a great mountain. So it's like a simile. So whatever it was, like I say, we always try to, in our minds, come up with a natural conclusion of it. Okay, a mountain fire, that's a volcano. Could be, but it could be an asteroid, because we also know 1/3 of the stars is going to fall later on. So anyway, the object cast into the sea, compared to a burning mountain, whatever it might be. The third angel sounded, and there fell a great star from heaven, burning as it were a lamp, and it fell upon the third part of the rivers. So now you have the salt water, 1/3 gone. And then you have this, a great star from heaven. Now, scientists tell us that one of the smallest stars in our solar system is what? You may know. Something you see every day.
Must be Mars.
Hmm?
Mars?
No, star.
Oh, star.
Yeah. You something see every day, but you don't see it at night.
The moon?
Sun.
Sun.
Sun. Sun is a star. Right? The Greek word is a star, aster, like asteroid, aster. So they say that's the smallest. Well, if that's the smallest, could it fall on the earth? It's huge. It's way bigger than the earth. The earth wouldn't survive. So there are other things out there that scientists don't know about. And here's a great star, asteroid, a star, whatever, burning it were a lamp. It fell upon the third part of the rivers and upon the fountains of water. The name of the star is called wormwood. Remember, in the Old Testament, wormwood meant bitter. Remember they came across the water and it was bitter and they made it sweet. But anyway, now you had 1/3 of the sea, now 1/3 of the fresh water became bitter. And many men died of the waters because they were made bitter. So,
There won't even be water for them to drink.
right, yeah, you start rationing water with a war going on. 1/3 of the land has been devastated with fire, 1/3 of the sea has been devastated, and now 1/3 of the fresh water has been devastated. It's not a good time to live. Stars called wormwood in Israel, and I copied this down and I should have corrected it and I didn't, because I was using the word Palestine, because it's not a correct term. The word Palestine appears 3 times in the Bible, and it actually refers to Philistia. Palestina, I think, twice in the Bible, and once as the word Palestine. But it's always Philistia, it's the Philistines. So Israel today should not be referred to as Palestine, and that's one
So
I
what
didn't
was the word
change.
you should have put there?
Mm,
What was the word there?
Israel.
Instead of?
Yeah, instead of Palestine, it should be Israel. And I'd already printed out the books and all that, and I thought, well, I should have corrected that. But I do want to make a point of that, because Israel today should not be called Palestine. You have the Palestinians, so-called, over there, which are Philistines, if they are correct, but it makes the water better. But apparently, wormwood in Palestine is not poisonous. This star will poison the water. So you really can't compare and say the exact same thing in the Old Testament days with what's going to happen in the tribulation period. Because we know the water will be bitter, but we also know people will die from it. In the old, nowadays, the wormwood is simply just bitter. It makes the water taste nasty. But nevertheless, the point being that 1/3 of the fresh water is unfit now for human consumption.
Should we put Israel on there as well?
Yeah, both places should be Israel. I keep telling myself I'll make that correction, and I keep forgetting. 4th trumpet now, angel sound, 1/3 of the sun, 1/3 of the moon, and 1/3 of the stars were smitten. So now, what will that be like? And to be honest with you, I don't have a clue. I can't imagine the havoc that would come upon the earth. Because we know that the tides are controlled by the gravitational pull of the moon. Well, if 1/3 of the moon's gone, what will happen to the tides? If 1/3 of the stars are smitten, what about at night? What's it going to be like? And then 1/3 of the sun, so it's only 2/3 as bright as it is now. You talk about climate change, there's going to be some climate change going on there, because it's going to be cold.
We're gonna need to have that vitamin D supplement.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it's going to be, physically, the world is going to be a horrible place to live. And that's not counting the Gog and Magog war. That's not counting the lack of food and lack of water. I mean, just the climate itself is going to be horrible. So, do I think climate change is real? Yeah, it's going to happen right here. The 4th trumpet, and then, it also goes back to Matthew 25 when Jesus is telling people to be prepared, for you know not what hour the Lord cometh. We know that there's exactly 2,520 days in the tribulation period. We know that covers a 7-year period of time. We know it's divided up into 1,260 and 1,260 days. We have all that information. But how long will a day be in the tribulation period? Will it still be 24 hours? 1/3 of the sun and 1/3 stars and 1/3 of the moon? Will the rotation of the earth change? Well, I don't know. And nobody else does either. And so that's why God's saying you don't know when the end's going to be, so you better make your commitment now, because you may not have time. In contrast, the first 3 judgments here, the land, sea, and the rivers, the 4th trumpet is aimed against the heavens. And it says, I beheld and heard an angel flying through the midst of heaven, saying with a loud voice, Woe, woe, woe to the inhabitants of the earth, by reason of the other voice of the trumpet of 3 angels, which are yet to sound. So now here's a messenger. Remember now, a war's going on, so there's all types of activity, planes, missiles, bombs, who knows what else. The fifth and sixth trumpet, now, we'll stop right there, and next week look at the first two woes.